In 1997, I was a broke filmmaker, and I felt like I was at the end of my career, and I just was not going to find any success. In 1998, I got Metal Gear. In 1999, I wrote X-Men. So I went from having no career to being an A-list screenwriter in 2 years.
David Hayter. Yes, that David Hayter, the defining voice for a generation of game and film fans. His well-known legacy spans from iconic game performances like Metal Gear Solid to screenwriting credits on some of the biggest 2000s superhero films, which cements him as an industry pillar and a fan favorite. To this day, he is still busy working on creative projects, and we were fortunate enough for him to squeeze us into his busy schedule to talk about some of the things he's been working on. This is Behind the Mic with David Hayter. David, we all know your work as Snake is legendary, but in fact, you've been a trailblazer in so many ways and achieved so much in each aspect of the entertainment industry with acting, voice acting, writing, directing, producing. What's one guiding philosophical principle that's allowed you to be so grounded and creatively versatile?
Well, the key to it all, I think, is passion, is fire. The things that you need to say, the things that really move you are the things that will really move an audience. So, never take a job just for the money. Ideally, you want to get paid well to express your passions to the world. And if you are, typically the people paying you make their money back and more. Which is, of course, a key aspect of the business. I think you also have to be very careful never to think that you are an intrinsically more valuable human being just because you play Solid Snake or because you write a movie that other people like. People always say, "Oh my God, you're so down to earth," and I'm like, "Well, why would you treat anybody as lesser than because of your job?" And I think that artists really get into trouble when they start thinking that they are something special, Hopefully you have something special to say, but your intrinsic value as a human being doesn't necessarily rise just with your box office.
Yeah. No, of course, because you've done such incredible voice work, not just as Solid Snake, Naked Snake, and Big Boss. You've also voiced the main Jedi character in Star Wars, Old Republic, Time of Home, but also Captain America. So when you're writing a script, for example, are you essentially performing the characters in your head the way you would do it in a recording session, or does your writing process approach characterization in a different way?
Very similar processes. People always ask me if I write for certain actors. Do I write this part for Brad Pitt with Brad Pitt in mind, or Tom Cruise, or what have you? And I don't. I look at every character that I write as I approach it in the same way I would as if I was portraying the character. Trying to come up with their backstories, trying to come up with their quirks and their specific personalities. And I do that by taking examples from the thousands upon hundreds of thousands of people that I've met in my life, and anybody with weird personality tics or something cool that they have about their personality goes into it. But really in my head, I'm sort of playing all of the characters. They kind of come through my filter, my voice, and then when you get a great actor who comes in, like an Ian McKellen or Patrick Stewart or something, they take that character and they put it through their own filter, and you get something completely different. You get something completely original, and that's always a joy to see. So yeah, it really, working on like the first X-Men movie, it really came from having dissected so many characters in my past in voiceover and on camera and all of that, and trying to, like I say, you try to flesh out these characters that you're playing as much as possible. Who are they? What's their backstory? What does the world mean to them? And that's a similar thing to creating a character on paper, I find.
Yeah. on that note, actually, because when you brought up X-Men, that was actually a moment in your life that you actually spoke with Rob Paulson about. You summarized it basically as a combination of opportunity and preparation. How did that moment really impact how you approach writing going forward? Because it is a bit of an interesting story.
Yeah, no, it's one of the craziest Hollywood stories ever. I mean, yeah, I was hired to answer the phones on the movie X-Men. I was one of the few people working in the office who really knew the comic books, and I had worked with the director before on a small film. So he knew me as a filmmaker, and I just suggested a scene, and he said, go write that for me. At which point I figured he was kidding. But he wasn't, and so I started writing on the movie. What I learned, and I had done some writing on my own. I had written some small, short films and a low-budget feature, stuff like that. So I had some experience in terms of writing, and I had read all the screenwriting books. But what I learned on X-Men was how you work with the studio and how you work, what the politics of filmmaking are, especially on a big budget film. I went into it thinking, oh, this is X-Men, we're gonna have so much fun, and then I got there and there was very little fun happening. Like the actors have fun, but behind the scenes it's stressful.
Yeah.
And everybody, if you're having too much fun, they think you're not taking their money seriously enough, and that's a deadly mistake. So I had to learn about studio politics. I had to learn about writing for a budget, even a big budget, but even, and X-Men was like a mid-range budget, so there were definitely parameters we couldn't cross. There were definitely scenes that I would write that were too big, too expensive, and I had to learn how to write the biggest scene we could afford, basically. And that involves coordinating with the special effects producers and physical producers and the director to make sure he's still getting everything, he or she is still getting everything they want for the creative side of it, but you are able to do it within the monetary parameters that you're given. So that's something you really don't learn until you get a produced movie made.
Of course. And while we're still on the topic of script writing, I also want to discuss Watchmen because you were in contact with Alan Moore during the creation of the script for Watchmen, which was fantastic, by the way.
I mean, thank you. It was hard work, but it definitely came from Alan and Dave Gibbons' masterwork. I mean, I don't want to take credit for brilliant ideas that weren't mine, but I will take credit for getting the movie made. For I don't know if Alan will appreciate that or not, but we did it, and I got to honor that amazing story.
So when you guys were writing the script, did Moore's voice sit on your shoulder as kind of an instinctive filter, or did you feel a more palpable sense of creative freedom to write on your own terms?
Really, the main focus was keeping the voice of the book alive within the movie. And where I came into it, where my voice comes into it, as I say, it's about passion. And I love that book so much, and there's so many amazing moments, character twists, story beats, that my love for it needed to come through clearly. And one review, maybe the LA Times, said, the screenwriter is clearly drunk in love with this book, was the quote. And I don't think they necessarily meant it as a compliment, but that was how I wanted it to feel, that somebody who loved that story was telling that story. And like Peter Jackson, Fran Walsh, and Philippa Boyens writing Lord of the Rings, like, it feels like Tolkien, but you can tell that they just love every beat, every costume design, every creative execution just comes from a place of real love of that material. So that was the goal for Watchmen.
Because also, so you talk about passion with creating Watchmen, or helping to create Watchmen. And then you also have the passion for voicing Snake for 9 games. And basically, because there's a lot that Rorschach and Snake definitely have in common. They're more dark, gritty, anti-heroic figures operating in kind of an ethically gray world. Did writing Watchmen ever make you see Snake differently than when you originally started voicing him?
No, because I had fallen in love with Watchmen when it came out, and I was a teenager in the 80s, and so reading the book, changed my whole life and perspective on storytelling. So that was already woven in to my entire creative being before I ever found out about Metal Gear. But I never equated Rorschach with Snake. Rorschach, who was my favorite character in the book, is pretty twisted. Like his morality is not my morality. Snake's morality is my morality, basically. You fight when you have to. You do the right thing when you can. If someone's in trouble, you do whatever you can to help them, regardless of what your bosses say, regardless of what your orders are. That's not Rorschach. Rorschach believes he knows right from wrong, and he executes it in the way he believes. But really, he's a pretty fascistic character, which is such a neat trick that Alan Moore pulled off, because he's still lovable, and you still get where he's coming from, even though you wouldn't want somebody acting that way under that kind of black and white morality, because it's not really morality all the time. But the things that Solid Snake does, I tend to always be, I'm very dialed into that. The way that Kojima executed that character really spoke to me. The way that, Rorschach was executed really spoke to me, but in a way that I think, there's a great satire there. There's a great, what Alan Moore is saying with Rorschach is, okay, so you want people to dress up in costumes and do the right thing. Well, what if what they think is the right thing is not what you think is the right thing? You know what I mean? And that's why Watchmen is so brilliant. He's like, what if Batman was a Republican, or would you be so thrilled about what he was doing? Yeah. Maybe he is. He's rich. I don't know, but he seems to care about other people. That's different.
Now, with Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, you went back to the booth to re-record certain lines when making this.
Yes.
But there's always the risk that if you change too much, you might lose the nostalgia that fans are attached to. How do you walk that fine line between reinterpretation and preserving what people already consider iconic?
Well, it's a good question. That's extremely important. You never want it to, especially when you're blending lines from 20 years ago and blending lines from today, you need it to be as seamless as possible. I think in a lot of ways I could perform Snake more smoothly now than I did then, but I didn't want to bring in a difference of performance. But they basically, for the lines I replaced, they played me what I had done 20 years ago and told me what they wanted changed in the lines. So I could hear exactly what Snake was doing, and I like to think I sound pretty much exactly the same as I did then.
Yeah.
So when I hear it, I can match it.
Of course.
And and like you say, like matching it properly was without, seamlessly was the goal.
Yeah. Because you've also mentioned that Snake has sometimes been misunderstood, really. So, like, what drew you into him? Because you say that his morals are your morals, and that you thought subconsciously this also drew the audience into him. It was his inability to turn away and making sure that he was doing the right thing and he was helping people. Yeah. It's his heart. That's what I think people respond to subconsciously, even if they think it's more about him being badass, which he is, but it's really his heart and the way he, you hear it in the way he talks to Paramedic
Like she's talking to him about movies, and he's in the middle of a mission, and he could be like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm in the middle of a war zone, but he doesn't. He's listening, and he's like, oh, so that's Godzilla, huh? Like he genuinely cares about her feelings, and I just think that's so sweet, and I think that that's part of what makes him endearing. Yeah. I don't know if I answered your question.
Oh no, you did. Yeah. So because I also had a part 2 to follow up with that. Do you think that audiences are sometimes prone to maybe misreading stoic, independent, badass characters because it's easier than maybe confronting some of their vulnerabilities that they have?
Yeah, good question. Well, I think like if you're a 17-year-old kid and you're a fan of death metal or whatever, you might be into a stoic character because they're badass, because they don't take any shit, that they're strong in this world and they're able to impose their will. And all of those things are attractive qualities to a hero or an anti-hero. And maybe a kid like that will not be thinking of how kind Snake is being to Paramedic when she's babbling about movies, or his complex feelings for Meryl or whatever. That might not enter into it, but I think you definitely feel those things regardless. Like, you should be able to watch Watchmen, play Metal Gear, and you should be able to instinctively sense the differences between Rorschach and Snake. And you might say, as you did, they're similar. They've got similar aspects, which they do. So it really just depends on how sensitive you are. But not every audience member needs to get every single nuance of a character. They don't need to have it cataloged in their head, all the different things that make up this person. But I do think that subconsciously you pick up on a lot of that stuff, and it really colors the character for you. Ideally, Snake is different from, in his own ways, from Clint Eastwood's The Man with No Name, or Snake Plissken in Escape from New York. Although Snake Plissken, I think, was the inspiration for Solid Snake, and I think they do have very similar things. Snake Plissken is also cares.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to admit it, and he doesn't want to talk about it. No. But by the end, he cares about Maggie. He cares about even Brain and Cabby and all those people. So yeah. The more complex they are, the more they're not cardboard, silent types.
Yeah, of course. Now, you, in addition to, like I mentioned, so voice actor, writer, producer, you have also directed a feature film before. So Wolves, being a pretty good movie, was very personal for you. But how did making that film resonate with you, and what did you walk away from Wolves not knowing before you started on that project?
Oh, well, many things. I learned a lot directing my first film, and I had an amazing time doing it. I loved my crew and I loved my cast. And, there were certain production elements that I wish I had been more knowledgeable about before we went into it. Things, what could we afford to do versus what I wanted to do. I tend to write things more, bigger and more expensively than they should necessarily be done, because I want to push the studios into giving us more scope. And at a certain point, once you get your budget, there's just things you can do effectively and there's things you can't do effectively. So, beyond that, I don't want to say too much. I mean, I wish more people had seen the movie, and that's entirely my fault. But I did love making it, and I loved all the people involved, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Now, earlier in your life, you had spent a few years in Japan, and then you had also done voice work in arcade games as well as your English tapes as well. Was there something in particular, or multiple things about the culture of Japan that impacted the way you approach your work?
Oh yeah, no, living in Japan. Yeah, we moved to Japan when I was 16. I went to high school there for a year and a half, and then I lived there for another 2 years just on my own, traveling around, and that changed my entire life. I mean, I was studying martial arts at the time, and I, learned so much about samurai culture, about the way they viewed honor, about the way they viewed hardship, achieving your goals. I learned so much about that. They're so cognizant of other people, and despite how crowded it is, they're so they constantly recognize other people's space, other people's right to have their own space to themselves, and I just fell in love with the culture and the people, and I don't know what kind of person I would be if I hadn't had that experience. I think I'd be more Canadian, more American. But I learned to be Zen. I learned to take adversity with calm, and that has been extremely helpful in the entertainment industry, especially producing or directing. Because things are so constantly stressful, and the people that survive are the people that are able to just meet it with as much calmness as possible, not let it eat at them all night and keep you awake. I mean, the people burn out very easily in this business, and the Japanese culture really helped me avoid that.
Yeah, because with that experience, you've dealt with some of the struggles of Hollywood. You've also been celebrated, of course, and hilariously memed with your famous dummy thick clip. And yet you always come back with humor and grace. What is it like watching your creative work unexpectedly take on a life of its own?
Amazing. It's, I'm as big a nerd as anybody, and I, like I say, I was a teenager in the 80s, and so Steven Spielberg films, Star Wars, all these things, impacted me as much as anybody living. Made me want to do what I do. So to see characters I've worked on, movies that I've written, enter into popular culture and continue to evolve through other people's creativity, and continue to resonate with people throughout the culture is just a gift. It's so cool. And really, from a nerd perspective, I just nerd out over it all. It's a joy to see those things. Now, to be clear, I didn't want to record the dummy thick one. People kept saying, "You got to record this," and I'm like, "No, I'm not doing that. That's stupid. I'm not doing it." And then my friend's son, who was like 16 at the time, said, "Hey, will you record the dummy thick line? I want to make a TikTok out of it." And so for him, I said, "Okay, I'll do it." And then I did it. And now I'm glad I did, because people, I think 20% of the people I meet talk to me about my dummy thickness, and it's pretty joyful. So
yeah,
all good.
Now, you have shaped a lot of iconic characters in game and film, as well as animation, including that. If someone were to write like a biography about your life and illustrious career, what is one story they'd absolutely have to include?
Oh, well, the story, I'm actually writing it myself when I have time. I'm writing a book about how I came to write X-Men. And that period, in 1997, I was a broke filmmaker, and I felt like I was at the end of my career, and I just was not going to find any success. In 1998, I got Metal Gear. In 1999, I wrote X-Men. And so I went from being dead broke, having no career, to being an A-list screenwriter in 2 years, space of 2 years. So that journey is too complex and to go through here. But I am writing a book about how it all happened, what I had to deal with, the fact that the studio was, did not want me writing the movie and tried to get rid of me. throughout the entire process, which I understood, but it didn't make it any easier. And just learning to navigate working on an $80 million movie with people that hate you and fear you, and not losing my temper, not freaking out, not having a nervous breakdown. All of that stuff was quite a journey. So that's the key component to this particular phase of my career, and so yeah, I'm trying to get it down on paper.
There is a generation of voice actors who cite you as their origin story, the person who inspired them to get into voice acting and pursue a career across any aspect of the creative industry. If you had to distill one lesson about longevity and the business into a single sentence, what would you say?
Don't take it all too seriously. Don't take yourself too seriously. Don't think that, and don't take it all too seriously. Don't take yourself too seriously, and don't take the failures too seriously. I think if you put commas into all of that, that's the sentence I would say. You can't you're gonna fail, and you're gonna fail big time, and sometimes, because it's entertainment, you're gonna fail in front of the whole world. And if you let that destroy you, you'll never survive. It happens to everybody. It's happened to Steven Spielberg. So you just got to keep going and believing. And if you take the ups and the downs and the poverty too seriously, you may lose it. It may be too stressful for you. It may cause you to fall apart. So when I go to bed at night, no matter ups, downs, whatever, I try to just let it go and just go, the world will still be here tomorrow. Breathe it out and take it on again tomorrow. That's the key.
Yeah. No, that's a graceful way to put it. Now, we appreciate that because you've spoken about projects you are currently working on, your book included, and we know that there are also limitations with what you can and cannot talk about, but is there something that you are excited about that you can maybe give a little bit of information on?
Well, it's been announced that a movie I co-wrote with my friend Dallas Jackson is being developed at 20th Century, Disney 20th Century. I just got off of a call with the studio discussing next steps, and we're making that movie. The producer, one of the producers is Top Dog, Kendrick Lamar's manager, so that's really exciting, and I got to go to the Kendrick and SZA show and sit in free $2,000 seats. That was pretty cool. So that movie, hopefully, there's no guarantees in life, but hopefully will get made this year, and I really am excited for people to see that. I can't say what it's about or give you any insight into it yet. All they've announced so far is our current title, which is The Zone. But that one, I'm so excited to be working with the people I'm working with. The execs at 20th Century are so much better than the former execs at 20th Century. So I can say that without fear of contradiction. And what else? I've just announced I got to record a new performance as Snake for a collaboration with the Delta Force game. And, beyond that, there are multiple projects I'm working on that I can't discuss simply because of due to NDAs. But lots of good stuff coming.
Yeah. I look forward to seeing it, and I'm sure everyone who is going to be watching this is also going to be doing the same. Now, we have some quick fire questions to ask you. So basically the way it works is I just ask the question and then first thing that comes to your mind, if possible. First one, if you could voice a scene with any actor or voice actor, who would it be?
Oh, God. Oh, so many. I just met Martin Sheen in New York at New York Comic Con, and he, when I was a kid, I was like, this is the greatest actor alive, and I got to tell him that. I just told him he was the greatest actor alive, and he kind of looked around, and I was like, no, you. And so that would be amazing. I did get to do 30 minutes of improv with William Shatner on the movie Christmas Horror Story. He was playing a DJ, and we needed like ad lib people calling in and him hassling them. So I sat under the DJ booth and we just riffed for like half an hour. That was a dream. Harrison Ford, Tom Cruise. God, I don't know, man. There's so many people that have inspired me, and I got to write dialogue for Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart. That was something else. So I've had a lot of dreams come true. I got to work with like Clancy Brown, which was amazing. Ed Asner on the Spider-Man show. So there's a lot of amazing people I have worked with. But I guess the ones I've named would be pretty good. Helen Mirren, maybe Nicole Kidman. But I met Nicole Kidman and I was so shaken up I couldn't form a coherent thought. So that maybe performing with her would not go well. I don't know.
Maybe not. Now, second one. What is the most random piece of voice direction you've ever received during a session?
I don't know. I mean, Chris Zimmerman Salter directed the English versions of all the Metal Gears. She'd go, okay, good, but can you do it a little snakier? I'm like, oh yeah, So that's kind of fun. And then on Star Wars The Old Republic, they're like, could you give it a little more Jedi? And I'm like, of course I can. That sort of Zen thing.
Do you have a studio snack of choice?
I like muffins. I really enjoy a good blueberry muffin or cranberry orange muffin when I go into the booth. I mostly eat Japanese food, so when we're on set and we've got proper Japanese food, I enjoy that quite a bit as well.
Is there a voice acting pet peeve that you have?
Yes. For sure. There's a number of voice acting pet peeves. There's a thing that young actors do, I find now, where they don't do anything, and their delivery is just very neutral. And, I think that is a safe way to not make any mistakes, but I also think that, the goal of the actor is to express the particular emotion of the moment. And if everything sort of reads the same way, it doesn't do that. And you might sound believable, but I just don't think you're properly doing your job it feels like you're hiding behind a monotone delivery. So that sort of drives me nuts.
Finally, if your mic could talk, what would it say about you after a long session?
Could you brush your teeth? No, I don't know. What would my mic say? Why do you keep screaming at me? And is that your real voice? What the hell? That's probably what it would say.
Beautiful. David Hayter, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I appreciate it very much, and I think I speak for basically everyone who will be watching this video and everyone who has watched or consumed a project you've been a part of. You have done some outstanding work. We all appreciate the effort you put into your craft and every performance you give and write. So I look forward to everything that you have to offer going forward, and I wish you the best of luck with your future projects as well.
Thank you. That's so kind of you to say, and I just know that I appreciate your support, the support of everybody who's enjoyed the things that I've done, and I'm so grateful that you all exist and that we all sort of communicate on the same creative level, and that's just a gift beyond words. So thank you so much. The questions were great and really well researched. So thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Behind the Mic. If you enjoyed the conversation and you want to hear more from the voices behind your favorite characters, then be sure to follow us on Spotify and subscribe to us on YouTube. And don't forget to check out our other interviews as well as voiceover tips and industry news at Voquent.com or on our social media. See you next time.